One of the most artistic, exuberant, creative, and luxurious things about black women is their hair. It shows their personality, style, and is the look. No matter how confident and creative black women's hair is, black women's bodies and appearance have unfortunately been more policed by Western societies than anyone to ever exist. From being demonized for having hips, butts, and lips, then having those same traits emulated and paid for by white women, to making it illegal for black women to wear the hair that grows out of their scalp. When we look at the strides in beauty products for black women, there's a gruesome history, as with most things that relate to black people in this country. There's a dark past to black hair in America. And even though we finally got to things like the Bronner Brothers hair shows, Nappy Wood, and the natural hair movement, where black women can bask in their cultural hair and appearance, there was a century's worth of struggle and laws to overcome to get there. Because like I said, no one has been more policed for existing in America than black women. Passed in 1786 by Louisiana Governor Esteban Miro, the Tignon Law was a sumptuary law mandating that women of African descent, free and enslaved, in New Orleans cover their hair with a knotted headscarf, or tignon. It aimed to stifle their growing economic influence, prevent excessive attention to their elaborate hairstyles, and reinforce white superiority by forcing a visual symbol of subservience. 2026. Only 27 states have ratified the Crown Act. The Crown Act stands for Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair. It's legislation aimed at prohibiting discrimination based on hair texture and protective styles like braids, locks, or twists in workplaces and in school. Passed by only 27 plus states, it expands the legal definition of race discrimination to protect women and individuals from hair bias. That's 240 years of this country legally dictating that black women's hair is either not good enough or makes white people uncomfortable because of how elaborate it is. Imagine being told you can't work, go to church, go to school with your box-dyed blonde hair. That would be crazy, right? But this has been the reality for every single woman in my family going back centuries. A few months back, Michelle Obama made comments about being able to wear braids now that she couldn't do so in the White House. And that's so true because they would have crucified her like they did Obama for the tan suit. But you have the right conservative political pundits like Megyn Kelly ridiculing black women, trying to compare white women's hairbeds to their own, which is just her screaming into an echo chamber of countless conservative white women who know nothing about history or black women's hair.
That was intentional, but it's like having me, the former first lady, a black woman, show up in the world in her natural hair. Even if I didn't do it for those 8 years, I understood the importance of doing it at some point and signaling a message to young girls and to professionals out there. Stay out of our hair, you know?
Wait, oh, so it's a black woman who you can't tell how to wear her hair. Can you tell the white women? How about the Asians? The Indian women? How about Indian women? They have very thick hair. A lot of times it's curly, it gets unruly. I'm sure they have to do the irons just like you, Michelle. Just like white women do too. By the way, I've burned my hair to the high heavens with those irons. Like, who is she fucking kidding? Everything is about poor boo fucking who, Michelle Obama.
One of the biggest negative outcomes of a century's worth of slavery and colonization is viewing ourselves through the eyes of European beauty standards. Skin bleaching, hair straightening, hating our features, colorism, which leads me to the term good hair.
You do. I decided at 11 years old I'd have a baby outside of my race so she had better hair.
You decided at 11 years old that you were going to have...
I was teased, called nappy head, bald headed. So I decided
to have a baby outside of your race. And what
There's a tax that black women pay that nobody talks about. It's not income tax, it's not financial tax, it's a hair tax. And it's been collected for centuries. When enslaved African women arrived to the shores of this country, the first thing colonizers did was ensure to strip them of their culture, language, names, beauty, practices, traditional clothing, and yes, their relationship with their own hair. In many West African countries, hair was and is sacred. The way you wore it signaled your tribe, your social status, your age, whether you were married. Hair had a language, and that language was deliberately silenced. What replaced it was a hierarchy, a racial caste system that said the closer you looked to white, the more human you were. Straighter hair meant proximity to whiteness. Proximity to whiteness meant proximity to safety. So generations of black women received this message, not just from white society, but eventually from inside their own communities, that the hair growing out of their heads was a problem. That's the world Garrett Morgan was selling into when he accidentally discovered chemical straightening in 1909. He wasn't creating demand. The demand already existed because black women were navigating workplace, schools, and institutions that had written European hair texture into their definition of professional, of clean, of acceptable. The relaxer didn't create the wound. It was sold as a bandage for a wound that white supremacy made. And that bandage was literally caustic, lye-based chemicals burning into scalps. Girls sitting in kitchen chairs while their mothers applied creams that could chemically burn skin on contact, because the alternative was being turned away from a job, being sent home from school, being told you were unkempt, unrefined, unpresentable. That word, unkempt, is doing a lot of work, because a black woman's natural hair, freshly washed, moisturized, and cared for, takes enormous labor to maintain. It's anything but unkempt. But the standard was never about cleanliness, as we know, with hygiene is cultural. It was about whose aesthetic got to be default, whose biology got written into the employee handbook, whose hair texture got coded as professional, and whose got coded as a problem. For most of American history, you could legally be fired for wearing locks. Imagine that. Legally expelled for wearing an afro. The Army banned twists and dreadlocks in 2014, hairstyles worn almost exclusively by black women and men, while placing no equivalent restrictions on hairstyles worn by white women. Schools across the country have sent black girls home, made them miss class, threatened expulsion over their natural hair. A child in Louisiana almost got expelled for her locks in 2018. The school called her hair a distraction. Think about what that does to a child. Before she has language for racism, before she can articulate what's happening to her, her body is learning you are not accepted as you are. The Crown Act was introduced to make race-based hair discrimination explicitly legal at the federal level. It has passed the House multiple times. It still has not passed the Senate. And today, we still don't have federal law protecting black women from being fired for wearing the hair that grows out of their head. The natural hair movement isn't a trend. It's not just an aesthetic choice. It's a political act. Every woman who put down the relaxer, who stopped burning their scalp to meet the standard built around someone else's biology, she's rejecting an inheritance that goes all the way back to the auction block. But it is within the purview of women to do whatever they want to do. Black women are some of the most upkept, groomed women in the world, and we no longer live by the same standards that getting a relaxer means that you hate yourself. It could be for the ease of managing the hair that grows out of our head. But like I said, black women pay a tax for existing, and black women pay a tax for hair, and black women have been paying that tax long enough. Stay blessed, my black queens. Bye.